The rain fell in sheets as I pulled up to the gates of St. Mercy's Asylum, the iron bars rusted and hanging open as if they too had long abandoned their post. The asylum, once a beacon for the mentally ill in the 1920s, had become nothing more than a crumbling corpse of a building. No one spoke of it anymore. It was as if the place had been erased from memory, left to rot in isolation deep in the forest. But I had heard the stories, dark, twisted tales of doctors performing inhumane experiments and patients vanishing overnight. It was the kind of place that begged to be explored, dared you to confront its secrets. And I wasn't about to turn down the challenge. I parked my car on the overgrown path leading to the entrance, the wind howling through the towering trees like a chorus of forgotten souls. Armed with a flashlight and my camera, I stepped out into the cold and began my approach. St. Mercy's loomed before me, the once white facade now stained with decades of neglect, windows shattered and boarded up like a skull with missing eyes. The door creaked open with barely a push, revealing a yawning black void beyond. Inside, the stench of mildew and rot hit me immediately. The air felt thick, suffocating. My flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating peeling wallpaper, broken furniture and medical equipment that seemed as though it had been abandoned in the middle of some grotesque procedure. The place was frozen in time, but time had not been kind. There was an eerie sense of life here, a presence, as if the asylum was watching me. I ventured deeper, my footsteps echoing unnaturally loud in the silence. The walls were scrawled with the frantic scribbles of former patients, desperate words like help, they see and never leave. I began to notice odd things. A door that seemed to shut by itself, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye that vanished the moment I turned. My flashlight's beam jittered as the battery drained faster than it should have. But it wasn't until I reached the lower levels that I began to understand the real horror of St. Mercy's. The basement was colder, the air stagnant and heavy. The deeper I went, the more it felt like the asylum was swallowing me whole. It was in the basement that I found the operating room. The door was locked, but the wood was brittle and a solid push cracked it open. The room beyond was the stuff of nightmares. Rusted surgical tools lay scattered across blood-stained tables, straps hung limp from gurneys, and the walls were lined with cabinets filled with jars that contained things. Preserved organs, severed limbs, pieces of patients who had never left. I lifted my camera, trying to capture the scene, but as soon as I did, my battery died. My flashlight dimmed, flickering with a life of its own. Panic set in. I turned to leave, but the door was closed. I hadn't closed it. Heart pounding, I yanked it open and stumbled into the hall. That's when I heard it, a slow, dragging sound, something moving behind me. I forced myself not to look back as I bolted through the corridor, the sound growing louder, closer. My flashlight flickered out, plunging me into complete darkness. In the pitch black, I felt my way down the hallway, hands brushing against cold, damp walls as the sound pursued me. My breath came in ragged gasps, and no matter how fast I moved, it was always just behind me. I found the stairwell, but as I began my ascent, the temperature plummeted. I could see my breath, and my legs felt leaden as if the air itself was thickening. Halfway up, I felt a tug. Something cold and slick wrapped around my ankle, pulling me back down. I kicked, scrambling against the concrete stairs as unseen hands gripped my legs. The sensation was like ice burning into my skin. I clawed my way free, stumbling up the remaining stairs and bursting into the main corridor. The exit was in sight, the door still ajar, rain pouring in from the storm outside. But as I rushed toward it, I felt the building shift around me. The walls groaned, and the floor buckled. The very structure seemed to twist, as though it was alive, trying to keep me inside. I broke free, sprinting through the open door and into the rain. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the asylum fell silent. The dragging sound stopped. The oppressive weight lifted. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I jumped in, fumbling for the keys, adrenaline surging through my veins. My hands shook as I turned the ignition, and the engine roared to life. But just before I sped away, I glanced up at the asylum. In one of the upper windows, I saw a figure, pale, gaunt, and staring directly at me. Its face was twisted into a grotesque mockery of a smile, its eyes black pits of nothingness. And then it was gone. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away, but no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. That night, as I lay in bed, trying to convince myself it was all in my head, I heard it again, the dragging sound. This time, it was just outside my bedroom door. I never returned to St. Mercy's, but the thing is, I don't think I ever left. I hear the sound every night now. Each time it's closer, closer than before. One day I know it will reach me.